I'm Dad Morris, you're watching Boast and Dan Bushcraft, and today we're not bushcrafting again because everything keeps breaking, so I've got some stuff to do. And if you notice any sort of little bit of fuzz on the video, I dropped the new GoPro the other day and I've scratched the lens and they just twist off and put a new one on, but I haven't got a new one. I'm waiting for one to be delivered by the good people at Amazon, so you're just gonna have to live with it. And I know somebody's gonna say, you could just take that cover cap off. I'm not doing this sort of work with that little eyeball in there unprotected, so you'll just have to live with it. So today, guys, it's a job on Gwenny. Now, Gwen is my 250 Superdream N Deluxe 1982. The year doesn't matter that much, they are fairly all the same. But Gwenny here is losing fork oil out of this side. I can see it's all wet there. Now, if you've got a bike that's, well, any bike will do this, but particularly with smaller motorcycles, if you can feel them becoming squirrely, the front end wants to drag and steer you about a bit on its own, the chances are, and this will show up particularly at low speeds, the chances are what you've got is a broken fork seal and you've lost some fork oil. Now, you don't always get a huge messy patch of oil bursting out of them when this happens. Sometimes, if it's only a very, very fine leak, you can be losing it as a very fine mist. What happens then is, it'll always tend to be one seal goes versus the pair at the same time. They're out of balance. You end up with the wrong or different measurements of fork oil either side. This causes a little twist as it runs down to the spindle down there, and then what happens is she will squirrel around on the road a little bit. Once we get them past to a certain speed though, that effect tends to disappear a bit, because gyroscopic forces and all that magic, your wheels don't want to be twisted or anything like that. You know, a spinning wheel wants to stay how it wants to stay. That's part of the magic of our bike stays up. But if you are getting this, oh, she's wheedling around on the road a little bit, she's harder to control at lower speeds, chances are you've got a busted fork seal. Now, particularly with the Superdream here, where we've got the left hand side's leaking and it's the left hand side where the brake disc is, this can turn into a big problem for you. If that oil gets onto your brake disc, it gets in your pads, you lose braking friction, your braking force is reduced. And to be fair, this Superdream's got a fairly rubbish front brake as it is, so we don't need that getting contaminated with oil. So first things first then, before we get into all the wonderments and technicalities of doing the fork seal itself, I've got to start pulling bits off it. There's lots of bits of this on it that we don't need anymore. We're not going to want for this particular, well, we do need them, but we don't need them for what we're going to do. So I'm going to have to like take the mud guard off, strip the indicators and everything off, loosen all the headlamp bits and pop that fork off. Now, any sensible human, just like a bearing, you're not just going to change one, you're going to do them both. There's no point doing one. If one's failed, chances are if you just change one side, you'll be rolling along at some point, squidge, oil will come out and you'll be in the same problem. So whilst we've got the front end all stripped, get them both changed. Exactly the same as wheel bearings on a bike. Oh, it's this side that's gone. No, do them both, do them both. All right, folks, so first thing I've got to do is get this mud guard off. There's 4 bolts holding this on. 4 size 10 bolts. This has not moved for a very long time, so this might be a laugh. So the first one has behaved itself quite nicely. Doesn't look too dry in there. I think somebody might have pre-lubed it a bit. But anyway, the biggest, well, not the biggest problem is going to be falling off and, you know, hurting yourself. But a problem with having imbalanced fork seals, and this probably won't show on the camera, but because it's the left seal that's by far the worst, it's encouraged a lot of weird wear on the right side of the tyre. So I've got a very, that is nice and clean, I've got a very uneven wear pattern on this tyre now. And, well, the long and the short of it is it's wrote this tyre off. So that does cause more cost. Now there's a little retaining clamp there that connects, just holds your hose, your brake hose still. And rather than fight it out of the rubber, I'm just going to undo it from the mudguard with another 10mm. There we are. And then my mudguard should be liberated, he says with a smile. La-di-da. Ew. I think I might give that a holly jolly good clean up and a solid lano guarding underneath there whilst we've got it off. Save that lovely job for later. And you pop that back in there so I know where it's come from. And Holly, you can look after that for me. Thanks, Hol. Right. So, 2 size 14 bolts are holding this brake caliper on. Nice and... It's a bit tight. That doesn't feel good. Oh no. No. Oh yes. Whew. Worrying. I don't like them when they're that tight. Luckily though, they are big solid thing. Oh, there's a bit of dry grease on that, so hopefully we're all right. Blessed to the people who do this work and use a bit of the right lubricant on them, because these aren't things you really want to break if you can avoid it. Oh, liberated. Right, just before I pull this bolt completely out, I'm going to go find myself a bit of string so I can tie this up somewhere and not have a load of pressure being put on these hoses. We don't want them yanking and dragging around. You could do them some damage that'll show up properly later on when you need your brakes. You squeeze it and nothing happens. So, we'll free that caliper, and I'm going to put the bolts that come out of it back into it. That way we won't be losing them. Very nice. And then all I'm going to do is use this little bungee cord to fasten it up out of the way so that it's not swinging around, but also so we're not putting any pressure on this hose that feeds it. Now it's quite important that you don't have some idiot come and squeeze your brake handle while this is off, because it might well just pop your piston straight out, throw brake fluid everywhere. Hey, and then you'll need to rebuild your brake caliper as well. Right. Now that's safely out of the way. Let's get this old R-clip or cotter pin or whatever you want to call it out of the way. Saves the professional method of doing this. Now then, let's get rid of this big castle nut here. Yeah. Beautiful. Now then, we've got 2 pinch bolts on the other side. There. That hold the axle in. Now, I'm not going to take them completely out right now. I'm just going to slacken them off a bit and then get the bike's weight lifted up. Oh, beautiful. 14mm. So on mine I've got this lovely little engine protection frame, which is a great point to get the jack under because it's solid metal and fastened to your frame. I've just used a brake as a spacer, make sure it's in line. However, if you haven't got that lovely little framework to use, go straight to the engine frame. Don't go to the starter motor or underneath the actual engine, the alloy cases and all that. We're not going to be putting a particular heavy amount of violence through any of this at any point. But even so, you don't want to be putting metal to metal when it's steel to alloy. So there's a frame lug just down there. If you've got a superdream, you'll know exactly what I mean. Now, we can get these pinch bolts off. And liberate this U-clamp. There we go. That's moved. That now comes off. with a bit of magic, the spindle will pull out, and there we have the front wheel. Nice. Now that thing that's just plopped off over there, oh, just while I'm here, yep, bearings are actually in good order. That's what we want. There's my front tyre, what's left of it. Oh, we'll get rid of that. And I am just going to pop all this assembly back on the end of the fork, just so in the meantime I know exactly where it is. Oh, that one's chronic. Oh, you can feel there's very little oil in that one now. This one's got more resistance than that one. I mean, the dust seal's gripping it more than the actual seal, and that's how you know it's dead. Not a problem. Now this thing here that fell off my wheel a minute ago, that's your speedo cable. It tells you how quick you're going. You're going to want that later. So, ugh. The good thing is when I reassemble this, I can just tuck him out of the way safely. When I reassemble this, I'll be able to give everything a good clean up. Which is right then. So I've kind of almost sort of made a little bit of a boo-boo here, but only, well, it depends on how it goes. It might not be much of a boo-boo at all. But really, I need to undo this damn thing first, this big bolt. I should have done that while I got the wheel and everything on it and it's not held up by a jack, but I kind of forgot. So I need to get that undone, and the only thing I've got I can fit down there is the adjustable hammer. There we go, loosey-goosey baby. There you are, and as promised, the spring didn't come whipping out and smash me in the face. Always a plus. Lovely. And then I can see down there, there is that secondary plug. Bit of oil, that's what we like. Magic. Right, now detach the headlamp. On mine, most of them have got these like chrome cover collars that go around these, like on the other Superdream over there, but on this one I've just got these clamps. So we need to detach that, undo this, and then the fork will slide out. GoPro stuff. It's a 10mm, of course it is. It's got a little lock nut on the back there. Where to put my 10mm spanner? Obviously it's a 10mm, so it's ran off because I took my eye off it for 2 seconds, so it's legged it. Doing this very carefully is to try and not scratch my beautiful shiny chrome headlamp. Naturally, that 10mm nut has just ran off under the fire blade, because why wouldn't it? Now, anytime you get the opportunity to, put the things back together like that so you don't lose them, because they will leg it when you're not looking. Next is this one, the lower clamp. 12mm. Yes, they like to make them all different for you, just for fun. There we go, good and stiff. The indicator all flopping around like a fish. Now theoretically the fork should just slide out now at this point. Oh, it is doing. That's unusual, they're usually stuck. Nice and gentle as not to scratch it. Oopsie, there we go. One Superdream fork. La-di-da. And now that I have it out and in my hand, you can see that it's wet. Yeah, that wets me fork oil. And just operating it by hand, you hear all those squelchy noises? It's not supposed to sound like that at all. So that's not what we want. But now what we do want is a nice workbench. First things first, noisy van, vitamin coffee. Oh gosh, these cups are brilliant for keeping your brew hot. I made this about 6 years ago. Still roasted. First things first then, let's have what's left of the fluid out. So there's a 10mm drain nut there. with a copper washer on it. Love the 10 mils they do. Just going to undo that. And now, see, that's dirty and wet as well. I mean, yeah, and the colour of it, not nice. We'll clean that up in a minute. Let's see what's left of it. Oh dear. Let's get some good old mechanics Kleenex on this job, because this is going to get dirty. Which is to be expected. I'll show you this oil in a minute. I'm just going to pop him back in his little hole for now, just so I know where it's gone. With the copper washer. It needs to be a copper washer as well. If you lose it, get another copper washer. Put a steel one in it. Copper is a lot softer than steel, and it compresses a little bit, and that's how it seals. You put a steel one in there, it won't do it. It'll leak. Filth. Take a look at this. Yeah. Not supposed to look like that. It still smells of vanish though. Poof. Not only is it not supposed to look like that, but there's fairly bugger all in there. Where's it all gone? Oh dear. Anyway, at this point, let's get this dust seal off. And we'll give this all a jolly good cleaning up in a bit, because that's filthy as well, which it will be, because that's where all that oil's been squeegeeing out of. Now this is where you need to have either the right tool, and that's these sort of reverse nuts. I don't know what they're called, to be honest with you. If you haven't got those, you can make what you need out of a bolt, because there's a I'll show it you in a minute, but there's a thing down here I need to get out. These are the square lug ones, and then those are the actual hex shapes. Now then, in this owl, you can see where there is that sort of female bolt thing. I need to get that out, because that's what holds all your spring and everything in place. But if I don't undo it, I won't be able to get the clean oil in there in a little while. So let's see if this wants to come out. Oh yeah, like I say, it shouldn't be under a vast amount of tension, because they're not very big springs. Right, there's a big circlip in here that is holding the actual seal in. There we go. There's your big and rather filthy looking circlip. We'll clean him up in a minute. Ugh, yeah, that oil seal isn't just like bad, it's absolutely destroyed. Bit more oil wanting to liberate itself there, as it does. Need more blue oil. That, I don't need that for the moment now. This is where organisation is crucial, because you'll end up with stuff everywhere, so I'm just going to take this over here. Alright then. Where are we? Coffee, that's where we are. It's a good thing this cup was cheap, because I'm pretty much going to ruin it. So, there is a big Allen key bolt that lives up there. Straight up, that's got to come out. That will allow everything to come out of the lower part of the fork assembly. Let's see how well behaved this is. I have to admit, I was not expecting that to be quite so well behaved. So far, this has been very pleasant. Usually everything's all stuck. Right, now, that bolt, come out, you devil. He doesn't want to drop out the bottom, because they don't. Your fork is loose, and with the circlip missing, we should be able to bang the oil seal up out of there. There we go! And there is the bottom of your shocker mount and all of that assembly. And there is what's left of the oil seal. Delicious. How very, very nice. That's all clean. Still got a bit of its assembly grease on it. Right then, let's clean my hands up a little bit. Yeah, we're going to give all this a jolly good cleaning. In fact, that can just sit over there and let what's left of its oil dribble out. Ugh, gross. Now then, check that this isn't all pitted and broken, because we don't want that. Clamps there and there. It shouldn't be coming that high up anyway. Lovely. There is the old malfunctioning oil seal. Beautiful. Ugh. We won't be needing you. I'm just going to take the spring retainer out on the little cover cap and have a look, see what's going on in there. There's that little stopper washer I was telling you about. That's what stops your oil spraying everywhere. And there's your little retainer pin, or lug, or bolty thing. It's not very big. And there's the spring. Let's have a look at you. Let's pop you that way. Yeah. And that spacer. Yeah. There's the spring. Otherwise looks in decent enough order. Now then, let's just make sure all of that oil is out. There's my shock absorber, or what it functions as, the shock absorber. Ugh. Let that stand a minute and let it drain out. It's all in relatively good order, to be fair. Lovely. Drain all that. And then I'm going to have to go get a bit of a cloth and some more blue roll and make sure all of this is clean, because I don't want well, we don't want it dirty in here. There's no point. So, using some of the children's old clothes, just going to clean this up and get the oil off it. So I'm just going to open up this and take this little retaining collar off so that I can get the new oil seal on. Lovely. And we are almost ready to slide the new oil seal into place. So here we have the new seals and some fitment grease. You need very clean hands to do this. So you'll notice there's sort of one side's got a bit of hollow on it and the other side's a bit more sort of closed. The more closedy side, as opposed to the hollow side, the more closedy side faces upwards. So the more hollowy bit is downwards inside. This is where we want to grease up what we're doing a bit here. Nice clean fingertip for this. Don't be shy with it, you can always clean it off. It's a jolly good dousing of that. And on the end of here, because that's where we're going. And then the magic part. Very carefully and very delicately wiggling the seal onto the end of this. There we go. Very nice. Now, it's not under a massive amount of pressure at the moment because obviously there's nothing going on in there and it's not being gripped by the other half of the fork leg. So we'll just leave that there for the moment and we can pop this back together. Knowing now that it is in fact clean, and knowing that that doesn't belong on there just yet. Shake it and wriggle it till it comes out where it's supposed to. There we go. Then put this funny looking little thing back on the end of there, like that. And what we've got to do here, move that out of the way. We need that, which has got a hollow side and a not so hollow side, and it goes on with the hollowy side pointing up. That's the old seal. Lovely. So just keep it very clean as we do this. Put that back up there. And then we've got this one. This is why it's good to keep them all separate. That's going to go on there. Like that. And then there's this little clamp ring goes on the bottom of all of that to hold it all in place. It's the one we just fataled off with that screwdriver a moment ago. Beautiful. Just going to locate that one back on there. Bit of magic. There we go. Right. There's all the bottom assembly for the moment, but, and this is the big but, we need to make sure though that all of that it's going back into is nice and clean as well. So just give this a bit more of a cleaning up. I'll put the spring inside it for now just so as I don't lose it. But we're not going to tighten it all back together yet because I've got to put the oil in it in a little while. So let's have a look at this other half. So in there, where the seal actually is going to sit and do its magic, needs to be really, really clean for fairly obvious reasons. Obviously, if that's all filthy and grubby, it's going to affect the seal. Now, you can't clean that up with sandpaper. You really don't want to be running around inside there with sandpaper. That won't do you any good whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is just clean all the oiliness off it and the grubbiness that I can get at. And then I'm going to give it a good polishing round with auto salt just to make sure it's clean and as debris free as we can get it. Make sure we do scrub out every bit of that whatever cleaning product you've put in there, be it tea cut or, as I've just used, a splat of auto salt. That is as clean as it needs to be. Don't throw your old oil seal away right this minute. You are going to want that. I'll show you why in a little while. Now what I'm going to want is to put this back together and get that big Allen key back in it. So let's go find that. Let's slide this back in and find that. I'll put my finger on the spring and that'll just hold that firm for me. Down to the bottom, over there. In goes this big Allen bolt again. That's got him. What size were you? You definitely weren't 17. Ah. So you end up with stuff everywhere. Again, clean hand. Tweak in tight. Don't overdo it. You want just enough pressure to know that you've compressed successfully the copper gasket. Now then, getting that oil seal back in there can be a bit of a challenge on its own. Right then, so we'll slide the new one down like that. We need to keep it even when we pop it in, so the easiest way of doing that is use the old one and you can just tap that into place until it seats home. Right, time to pop this circlet back in on top of it. We'll clean this up as well, just while we've got it. Right, that's the dirty great circlip back where she lives. Just give all this a clean, because now we can put the dust cover back on. Clean as you like. Beautiful. Right. Protective dust seal. Lovely. Now we need that drain plug back in down at the bottom there. So same again, clean up all of this as much as you can, because these copper washers are your seals, and there's no good doing all of this to then only have oil leaking out of your little drain hole at the bottom there. Don't give it death, just make sure it's tight enough to seal. Now then, oil time. We need fork oil, which means we need a jolly good clean jug. So, right, the oil. Motul, fork oil expert, 10W medium. Fairly standard things. I mean, these little super dreams, there's nothing fancy about them, so they always take just standard stuff. But they only take 240 millilitres of that oil. So what I'm going to do is take out this little collar. I put that back in just to hold everything together while I was faffing about. So So I'm just going to take this little retaining thing out. Oh, there he is. And the little cover cap looks like a press stud. 240ml of fresh clean oil. And there we go. In with the little press stud looking cover cap and the spring retainer. Just nip him up. Doesn't need to be super tight. Lovely. And there we have it. Now then, that's ready to go back on the bike. Just cast my eye around everywhere. So this part basically is just the taking it off but backwards. So we're going to want that in a minute. Pop that there. And from underneath, obviously, in through that first clamp down there. And gently up. Through where the headlamp holder goes. All the way up to the top. Pop in back through the hole, which is a bit fiddly because there's a really great cable in my way. Don't go mental, it doesn't need to be stupid tight, just tight enough that it's not going to come undone. Followed by the lower one. As you see, this indicator's broke. I walked into it the other day. The biggest problem with these Super Dreams is they've got these massive indicators that stick right out off the bike, and it's just too easy to walk into. I've broke 2 or 3 of them so far. Right. Let's get this headlamp clamp back on. Go. Right, ready for a clean. Now then, as I said at the start, we do them in pairs. I am going to do the other side. I'm not going to bother filming it though, because we've already seen how we do it. So I'll get back to you when I've done the other side. Alrighty then, it's time for reassembly. So, as with all bikes, when we've got not all bikes have pinch nuts on the wheel axles. The 250 does, the Super Dream does, and anywhere we've got axles and pinch nuts and all of that, it is important to use the correct torque settings. I mean, to be fair, unless you know what you're doing, very few places is it not a good idea to use correct torque settings, particularly if you're the kind of ham-fisted person who overdoes these things. Because, and another video that I've got coming up in a little while, actually involving Rosie, the big old Africa there, you'll see what I mean. But nothing kills your bearings on a bike faster than overdoing the torque settings across the axle. So just twist you a little. There we go. So overdoing the torque settings across the your big nut holding your wheels on. Overdo it there, and that will most likely cost you a set of bearings. I need to get the speed reader back on it. That's it. Get it in like that. Making sure my little luggy bit is where it's supposed to be, otherwise you will hurt it. Now then, that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pop these out. I mean they're fairly greasy anyway. I'm just going to give them a token offering of the old anti-seize stuff just for the future. So that's all where it should be. Lovely, lovely. So what we need to do now is get this back on it. Poke him through, come on. Again, make sure your speedo reader is where it should be. Come on, there we go, I can feel it coming to where it's supposed to be. Try not to get your filthy oily hands all over your brake disc. You won't like that. Right, so the main one is 65 to 75 Newton meters. I did write it down earlier. Get yourself a torque wrench if you don't own one. You will be needing one. Keeping my eye on the speedo reader, just so I'm keeping my eye on the thing itself, so as I know it's not just spinning in the hole. And we're waiting for the click. And there's the click. And you're going to go one side then the other. Now we need a different torque setting on this, and we are 20 to 25 is a much lighter torque setting. If you overdo these and strip one of them, oh, you'd be really miffed. You've basically just ruined your fork if you do that. So do one a little and then the other a little, yeah? Shouldn't be long until we got the click. There's one click. And oh, I'm actually going to back that one off a bit and retighten it, because I just get the feeling that it's tightened more because I've just tightened that one. So basically I'm just being pernickety. There's that satisfying ASMR click for you. That's now beautiful and as it should be, and definitely not over torqued. The wheel is free as a bird and silent, with a bit of the old mechanic's Kleenex, particularly around the back where you can't see. And just make sure that's perfectly clean, and make sure I haven't put any oily fingerprints on there. We don't want any oil getting in your brake pads. I've said before on these maintenance videos, it's very easy to clean a disc. You get oil on your pads, that's the end of the knacker. Finger thread that in a bit. That's smooth. There we go. So it's just stopped, and I'm just going to give it a good quarter turn. There we go. Don't want to overdo it with that. Now then, to put the mudguard back on, we can drop her off the jack at this point. She doesn't need to be stood on that jack now. Because that's it now, that's job done. I've just got to put that dust seal back down. But before I put this mudguard back on, it's filthy in there. So I've got some special Lanaguard stuff that's for really heavy water areas. So I'm going to give this a jolly good cleaning up with a wire brush and give it a layer of that. You guys don't really need to see that though. And you've seen me take the mudguard off. It ain't going to be anything fascinating putting it back on. It's just the reverse of the process. So that is all there is to it with your superdream. And it's very similar process for most bikes, particularly most little bikes. At 250 she is really only a small motorbike. She's not massive at a 250, so all your fork things are going to be pretty much similar to that. Torque settings are likely to be different, so it's always worth looking them up. And as I said, always change the pair, even if like, all right, we'll level with you, some people will go, but this side isn't leaking and I don't want it. Well, fine, you might have to do it a little while later, but If you're not going to change the other side's seal because it's not leaking, at least drain the oil and change the oil. You don't want to be running one side new oil, one side manky, chewed up, old, aged oil. It does lose a lot of its bounce, a lot of its viscosity over time and use. Now, I know that your fork, it's not a hot area like an engine in the gearbox and stuff like that. It wears it out with the temperature, chewing it to death. But your forks, it's physically battering it to death. That's what's absorbing the shock. So always change the oil in both sides at the very least. Otherwise, you'll be back to square one. You'll just be imbalanced on the other side. But that really is all I need to say about this, guys. So, as always, get out there, get bushcrafting, get having fun, above all be safe. Maybe fix an old motorbike. The world is your oyster. But that is it from Bosun Dan today.